Hi, guys. Welcome to Weekly Travel Updates, September edition. I took off last week. I hardly ever do that, but I had to get rid of this big weekend we had this weekend. This weekend was Trey and Maya's baby shower, and my mom turned 84. So we had a big time planned, and we had a great weekend. So, lots is going on right now. The biggest thing that we see this week is going to be the extreme weather. The West Coast is seeing fires and extreme heat, like above 115. And then Francine, the tropical storm, will turn into a hurricane by tomorrow in all likelihood, hitting somewhere between Louisiana and Texas with hurricane force winds upwards of 120 miles per hour. It is strange that tomorrow is the peak of hurricane season. You know, hurricane season is from June until November. Tomorrow is historically the peak of the season. And if you have watched this year, we've seen Houston and the Gulf Coast of Texas really take a beating. It's going to be the same. If nothing else, they will have storm surges from 5 to 10 feet. And we watch some of those communities that had these storm surges, and because the rain didn't stop, the storm surge kept on and on for days. It was really a mess, and it looks like that could be. Well, while that's what we're looking at, that direction, in the Atlantic, we're looking at two more storms. One has a 60% chance of forming into tropical storm, and it would be called Gordon if it turns into a tropical storm. Right behind it, coming towards us, is the next possibility, and it's at a 70% chance of tropical storm. So to say our hurricane season is not over is probably true. Okay. I saw a lot of upgrades and new information from the airlines this week, and I just wanted to share it. Do you know that if you hear 3 low tones, beep, 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 it means that your cabin crew are needed elsewhere? If you hear 2 tones and it is high to low, it means that there's turbulence ahead and to be prepared. They're letting the crew know in advance. There was another fire this past week, and it had to do with charging your battery while on board. You know, they say don't bring lithium batteries, but I was not aware that we should not be even charging our phone with a power block. This caught on fire, and it is one of more than a dozen that have started because of that reason. Another story came out, and the EPA suggested you do not drink hot liquids on a plane. The liquids are heated on board, and much of it is tap water stored right on board those very old water tanks that are on these planes. You know, our aircraft is really aging, and for the EPA to come out and say, yeah, don't drink hot liquids. That was pretty interesting. Even if Delta offers Starbucks. Well, I had a Starbucks last time I was on a Delta flight. Okay, And did you know, I would love to see your guesses in the comments. What is the dirtiest part of an aircraft? Anybody wager a guess? Let's see who is on. Okay, I will tell you. The very first thing were the headrest. The headrest is the filthiest thing on the plane. Number 2 and 3 will really shock you. After the headrest being the filthiest thing on the plane were the tray tops, you would guess, but also your seat belts. All of these tested were carrying an enormous amount of germs. Just something to be aware of for your next flight. One of the things that, sorry, this was a little too far for me to see. One of the things that was suggested was to pack a pillowcase, because oftentimes we are bringing more stuff back than we took and we run out of room. If you have a pillowcase, you can stuff as much or as little in it as you want, and it can be brought on board as your pillow. I did hear that before, but I thought I would mention it to you because I wasn't sure if I'd done that before. And if you are searching for those low fares, search incognito. Don't search just a Google search, because through AI, you know our systems track us now, and your search that might show a fare of, say, $300, you go back in that same afternoon, and that same fare, in all likelihood, is going to be higher because they see your interest. So to go under DuckDuckGo, or there are a couple incognito search engines that is highly suggested. And one thing that I've not done, but it said, if you want your baggage off first, just mark it fragile. It's the last thing on and the first thing off. There are large fragile stickers that are available on Amazon. I will not post it below, but the travel person that I was listening to, they listed it on board. And then one of the other things that I found interesting was that the biggest travel deals are going to be April, May, September, October. Those are off seasons. We pretty much know that, but it's historically that way. So if you could plan your trip, graduation trips, to begin by the end of May, you will see a significant difference than the 1st of June. I tested that out today with a flight to Europe. It was almost $450 less to leave May 30th versus the first week of June. And I played with several dates. Well, this extreme weather we'll talk about. I grew up in San Bernardino County, outside of Los Angeles, and San Bernardino County is going through a massive wildfire. It is only 3% contained. They've already called off schools in Redlands, and I have a friend, Terry Hara, who lives in Redlands, so I am praying for you, Terry, if you or any of your family see this. But at only 3% contained, there are hundreds of acres that have already burnt. And if you Google it on YouTube, you'll be able to see. But so much of the San Bernardino Mountains are not really accessible. I mean, there's not paved roads to much of it. And from what I saw, the line of fire is reaching a ridge. When it gets over that ridge, I imagine it would be easier to fight. But that's just one of the of the wildfires in California. The other is in Northern California, and it started yesterday. It's already consumed over 71 acres, and it is more contained than the Southern California fire. Whew. They've had such a drought, and even with those heavy rains that we talked about, California stays kind of in a drought situation. When their temperatures are over 100 degrees most every day during the summer, it's just dry. And so when these fires come, it just sweeps across. It is devastating. Well, there was a revolt on the Carnival Vista this week. The Carnival Vista was setting sail for a Southern Caribbean sailing that does Aruba, Bonaire, Curacao. These three islands, the ABC Islands, are outside of the hurricane belt. So often in the fall, they're very popular departures, as was this one. Well, they get on board, they set sail, and because of propulsion issues on the Vista, they're told, rather than going to the Southern Caribbean, now we're going to the Bahamas. Woo! I'm glad I wasn't on there. I'm afraid that I would have been as disappointed as the majority of these passengers were. Well, it seemed that during the show that night, the passengers overtook the stage and they demanded that someone be in there who had the authority to do something about the situation. They were offered $40 per person, to which quickly one cruise passenger yelled, no, it's not really what she yelled. You can imagine. And then they were offered cruise discounts. They were offered onboard credit. And if you got off at the first cruise port in the Bahamas, you were refunded $700. I have not seen a revolt as these people were. But, you know, when you go on a cruise, with that cruise contract that you're agreeing to by paying for your cruise, it's a digital agreement. And it says that the cruise, because of engine, because of propulsion, because of acts of God, because of weather, because the seas are too large, the captain of the ship can decide what is best for the sailing. They don't have to give you back anything. I've been on sailings before where we've missed a couple of ports, and it was because of bad weather. We weren't granted anything. These passengers that were so rude and unruly, a lot of them got off and got their $700 refund. The experience for the rest of the cruise was said to be much better without those rowdy passengers on board. I just thought that that was interesting. Plus, I just wonder if their travel agent does not describe to them, hey, when you get on board, that captain is like God over everything that happens on that ship. They can say where it's going, where it's not going. They can say, put this person in the brig, put this person in the morgue. They have full authority. And for people to expect something over something that was out of their control, well, that's where we're at. Okay, I did want to tell you that stocks are way up again. Carnival was up more than 6%. They're back to 15.74. Royal Caribbean took a good jump with 3.4% increase at $160.26. NCL was even up at 16.30. And Viking has had just a steady increase at 35.63. Well, I hope you were not part of the Labor Day workers strike, hotel workers strike. You know, I've said on here often about the strikes in Europe and how they're scheduled. Well, over 10,000 union workers in pretty much liberal areas of the country, they went on strike Labor Day when there was the most demand. And they were Hilton employees, Marriott employees, San Francisco, Boston, Seattle, Greenwich, Connecticut, Baltimore, Honolulu, and Kauai. Those were the cities that they were on strike. What they said was it was successful and they are sitting at the table, but we don't want that in the US. They're done on schedules in Europe. So we surely don't want that to be successful here. I don't want to go to the airport and find that, everybody's on strike, because this is the way to get what you want. All right, guys. Well, our January 2nd departure for 9 days to Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao. We will make it there because we're going to be on the Celebrity Eclipse. And if you've not heard, we have got airfare round trip to Fort Lauderdale for $245. We're terribly excited. There are some interiors. I haven't checked balconies since Friday, but we would love to have you check it out and go along with us. It will be a great way to start off the new year. Thanks so much for checking out this week's weekly travel updates. I'm Melinda Fargas. I own Action Travel. And until next time, ciao.